Before we get into today's episode, I just want to let you guys know I'm now selling Photo Banter hats. If you'd like to purchase one to support the podcast, I'm going to put the link in the description of this episode, or you can go to the Photo Banter Instagram, and in the bio, I have a link to the merch store. So definitely go check it out if you're interested, and thanks so much. Before we get into today's episode, I just wanted to tell you guys about PicDrop. PicDrop is an image transfer tool I've been using personally for about 5 years now. I use it for sending all my files to my clients. I can organize all my files online, create custom folders and galleries for clients where they can download and even like rate the photos, write notes, and just kind of streamline my workflow where I can just access all my files online. I can access it on my computer or my mobile phone on the go if I'm looking to download something to post. But just really great platform that was actually designed by photographers for photographers in mind. So they really understand what photographers need when delivering photos to clients and are continually updating the platform with new features. Like they have a new scribble tool. So if you're working with a retoucher or your client, they can write notes on the photo and just an easy way to communicate. But like I said, I've been using this platform for over 5 years now personally for all my own personal work and client work. So can't recommend it enough. And with today's episode, if you enter the promo code BANTER when you sign up at pickdrop.com, you'll get 2 months free of PicDrop. So definitely go check it out and let me know what you guys think. All you got to do is enter BANTER at pickdrop.com and you'll get 2 months free. And without further ado, we'll get into the Alex Papke episode. Welcome back to the Photo Banter podcast. I'm your host, Alex Gagne, and on today's episode, I welcome on photographer Alex Papke. Alex Papke is a photographer based in Los Angeles, California. Much of his work focuses on photographing professional skateboarders. He has worked with clients such as Vans, Converse, Thrasher Magazine, and Girl Skateboards, to name a few. In this interview, I speak to Alex about how he got his work published in skateboard magazines for the first time, as well as his love of Polaroid photography and instant film. And I also speak to him about a photo he shot earlier this year with professional vert skateboarder Jimmy Wilkins and how he approached making that photo and shooting vert, and much, much more. I was really excited to get Alex on the podcast. He's one of my favorite skateboard photographers working today. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode, and thanks so much for listening. All right, Alex Papke, welcome to the podcast, man. Excited to have you on, dude. I've been following your work on social media and Instagram and stuff for a while, and always good to have a fellow skateboarder and skate photographer on. But how's it going, man?
It's going good, man. Just a regular Monday day in the life, kind of just like I dedicate Mondays as like a little office day, so I try and get as much like computer stuff done on these days as I possibly can, and then alleviate my workload for the week, you know?
Because as like a skate, obviously you shoot a lot of skateboarding, so weekends are probably kind of busy for you. Like people out skateboarding a lot most of the time, or
It depends. It depends kind of like what's going on and who's in town, if people are visiting or not. Sometimes it's really slow. Sometimes you're getting hit up a lot. But this weekend was nice. I like went out one day and kind of took Sunday as like my go skate day, and then my Saturday is just like my hang out with my girlfriend and do all my actual life stuff.
that's good. It's good balance. And I was
Yeah.
talking before. I was talking to our mutual friend Sam Muller, and he said, outside of your photography, you found a new passion in smoking meats. When did you get
Yeah.
it? When did you get into this? And like, any tips for smoking meats? Anything you've learned on this
Dude,
journey?
it's so funny because I've wanted to buy my friend TJ Gaskell kind of got me into like the whole Traeger thing a little bit ago, and I know like if I'm going like full professional meat smoking mode, Traeger like isn't the one everybody uses, but I fuck with it. It's great. But I wanted one for the longest time and I couldn't like justify buying like $1,200 grill. And I did a job a couple months ago and the client kind of fucked up on our usage terms and used photos that they weren't supposed to use. Like I think they just pulled from the wrong folder, and I hit them up and I got a little bit of extra money out of it. And coincidentally, that day, the producer from that job posted that he was selling his Traeger, and I was like, I mean, I pretty much get like a money and a free grill at this point. Like I might as well spend the money on this.
Hey, that's a
So
good lesson learned for anybody listening. That's why you charge usage. And if they fuck up, you can get yourself a Traeger grill. So there you
you
go.
might, yeah, that's it's honestly a good thing to buy. But yeah, I just got like kind of into it because I really like cooking, and the Traeger was fun because it's kind of like easy. You just kind of like let it sit there for a couple of hours and do your thing. But I'm still trying to like perfect it, But it was funny because the first thing I cooked on there, like I literally bought it and came home and I just went to Target and bought like the shittiest $12 steak. And I threw it on there for 2 hours at like a low temp and just like let it be. And I pulled it off and I overcooked the shit out of this thing. And it was still like the best piece of meat that I ever made before. And I was like, oh, dude, I'm like addicted to this now.
There you
It's
go.
funny. After this, I'm going to the store to buy meat just to smoke tonight.
But Sam said it's cool. Like I mean, outside of the meet, he said you'll kind of invite people over like other photographers and stuff, and you guys kind of just talk about photography. And is that being in Los Angeles and I think some a lot of freelancers struggle with like you kind of work alone a lot of the time. Do you have like a good like creative community out there in LA, like other photographers and people you kind of talk to?
Yeah, we actually have like a really cool creative community, and there's like a lot of people that I feel like have like either gotten into photography in the last few years or have been doing it for a really long time. And it's nice because there's so many people that I've personally looked up to for a really long time that live in my neighborhood and not too far from me. And it's nice where you can kind of just like reach out to people and be like, hey, do you want to come over tonight? And I don't know. We just have like a really cool community here where everybody's not like super cutthroat with each other, and you can kind of talk freely with people and like discuss rates and see if you're getting fucked over on a job or see if like somebody else got hit up to shoot something. But it's fun. I try and like keep that community as close as possible because I feel like I moved to California like 10 years ago. And when I first moved out here, everybody was like, just like annoyingly cutthroat, where it's like they don't want you being friends with their friends because of like skateboarding stuff. And like you think about it and you're like, dude, that's like the stupidest shit ever. Like,
Yeah, that's kind of why, like, because I moved out of, not to make about myself, but like I moved to California after high school because I started shooting skating and I wanted to be
mhm.
a skate photographer. And yeah, there is a lot, some of that type of stuff I found like in the skate world. It's like people are like territorial about like who they're shooting with and stuff like that. And I
Yeah,
don't know.
100%.
Yeah, I don't, yeah, how do you deal
It's
with
kind of
that?
it's kind of a bummer. I don't know. I mean for the longest time like when I was like the newer guy that was kind of like trying to make this happen, I I understood why people were cutthroat. Like I remember like I would hear stories and I'm not gonna like
Nah,
talk shit on anyone directly, but there was like a couple people who I would hear from the grapevine, like through the grapevine, that they would just be like, "Oh, don't shoot with him. Like, shoot with me. Like, you're staying on my couch. Like, shoot with me." Or just like, I don't know. You run into like weird territorial things with that, and it wouldn't even be like it would be like a 35-year-old man saying that to like a 19-year-old kid, and you're just like, it's kind of a weird vibe. Like, I don't know. I don't
yeah,
like going like where I'm at now, I couldn't like see myself really like saying that to someone and like taking myself seriously saying it. But it's
yeah.
cool because I feel like a lot of the photographers now are like pretty good friends with each other. Like I don't think that I have like a weird, unhealthy relationship with anybody that's like in that community, which is really nice because we all like there's not a lot to get, but like you kind of all have your own thing that you're trying to do. So you're not really like you don't feel like you're stepping on anyone's toes. And even if you are, you're stepping on someone's toes for like $150.
Yeah,
So
dude,
it's
that
like,
you'll see in 6 months.
yeah, it's like it's not worth it, dude. I'd rather have like a good friendship than like $100,
100%. And especially with skateboarding, and the thing, there's not as many skate photographers out there doing it. Like as much as
No.
you guys are out shooting. Like I feel like when I was a kid, same thing. Probably you growing up, there was a lot more skate mags, and now there's really only there's Thrasher, there's like Sam's Mag 2001, and then with Jamie Owens was it closer. So
Yeah.
there's not that many people shooting skating. So it's like it's yeah, that's why I was excited to have you on, man, because it's to have that level of dedication to keep shooting skating. It's not easy to do. I'm sure, like financially sometimes. But what kind of keeps you in the skate world? What do you love about it?
Um, I mean, there's a lot of things, man. I think like the initial thing is just like going on skate trips when it's like the right skate trip with like the right group of people is like the most fun thing, especially when you get to go to like a new place that you've never been to and you're just hanging out with people that have been like I don't want to say like idols, but you know, you've definitely like watched their video parts for the longest time and have gotten to like I don't know, you've just seen them around so much since you've been like younger and then getting to actually have like an up close and like personal real relationship with them. It's just like really cool. And I feel like the longer you're in it, like the more like random doors get unlocked to do things, you know, and like the more like you do it, the more people kind of just like see your name and trust you a little bit to where it's like, I don't know, I did something for Stance a couple months ago where I just had to go over to Reynolds' house and just shoot portraits of him like wearing socks for a morning. And that was just like really cool to me because I've been like, Reynolds has been one of my favorite skaters forever. Like his Stay Gold part was like always on repeat when I was in high school. And so it's cool just to kind of like go over to his house and spend like an actual morning with him and just see like what his morning routine is and just like get to kind of capture that and have like he was just really cool with me too, where he kind of was just like, what do you want me to do? I'll do whatever you want. And I'm like, really? Like you're not
Because
okay, yeah.
had you worked with them prior to that or photographed them before that project?
Not really. That was like kind of the first time. I've like I know Andrew through passing, but not like I don't know. Like it's one of those things where you see him out and about and you're like, does this know my name? Or like do we like know each other really? But it kind of gets like solidified when you're doing something like that. There's just like a lot of cool people that I've always wanted to work with and like down the line I know if I ever wanted to do like a serious book of just like something kind of similar to like what Pete Thompson did with his book that I have like a really good well of photos to choose from.
Hmm.
And it's just kind of, I don't know. I feel like that's the one thing that kind of keeps you going through it. It's just like there's always like those white whales of people that you want to get. And so you're always just like, oh, like what can I do to try and like solidify that and get those people in front of my camera?
Yeah, I was like looking at some of your older work, and yeah, you got to photograph Tom Penny, who's like a legendary
Yeah.
skateboarder and kind of like somewhat of a
Yeah.
recluse. Like, how's the
Yeah.
experience kind of getting to meet him and photograph Tom Penny?
Dude, it's so funny because that was the only time I've met Penny was at Copenhagen Open and it was so funny because we I think it was Copenhagen Open in like 2021 and they did all these like crazy events throughout the entire city and one of them they converted this old jail into like an all-inclusive like I don't want to call it a skate park, but like there was like skatable obstacles and like bars and just like it was just like kind of a cool event day. But I saw Penny in there and he's just like I was with Evan Smith, I think, and Evan was talking to him and I like shot a couple of photos of them hanging out and then he was just by himself and I asked him to get a portrait and he was just super down and walked away with that and like said thank you. And that was kind of like the nice, like short interaction of just like, I don't know, a lot of people say like, don't meet your heroes or whatever. And it's kind of nice when you can keep it short so you don't have to like
Yeah,
get disappointed if it's like not what you like kind of envisioned in your head since you've been like 14 years old, you know? Um, but
any
there's
good.
also like a lot of people that are great to that you actually get to know and you're just like, oh man, this dude is like a huge sweetheart. Like
Yeah,
this dude's amazing.
and you always just had that confidence to like approach people and like photograph them, like especially I guess people that you don't really know and like strangers and things like that. Or do you feel like you kind of over time has kind of build that confidence as a photographer?
I think yeah, it's definitely like one of those things like over time you kind of just have to like get used to it because like what's the worst thing that somebody's going to say is like no, get out of my face or whatever. And like yeah, that's happened a handful of times and you can't like let it totally like destroy your ego, your like mental state. You kind of just have to be like, oh, that like obviously didn't work out. But yeah, I think you kind of just have to like go for it a little bit. Like just maybe it's important to like leave your comfort zone.
Mm.
And if you want to shoot a photo of somebody and it's available, especially at like a big event like Copenhagen Open or something, I feel like everybody's almost like free game in that sense to where it's just like just fucking go for it.
Yeah, the vibes are high. It's like a good group of people and things like that.
Yeah,
One
for
shoot I was
sure.
interested in talking about. You did a recent shoot. I think it was like a model named Amaya Faria, from
Oh yeah.
really cool. I like the work, and you kind of made it into like a little bit of a kind of like a collage. What was that shoot all about? Was that just kind of personal work or?
Just kind of personal work. I've been trying to just like I shoot a lot of things that like aren't skateboarding. Like I've been trying to kind of just dive into like I love shooting like lookbook kind of projects and a lot of notes that I get on my shit is that I don't have enough female presence in like an overall portfolio because like dude, I've spent all my time shooting like sweaty dude skateboarding.
Yeah.
And so I worked with this girl on like a random ecom shoot maybe a year and a half ago and just reached out to her because I was trying to do something different. Like I already had like a little we already followed each other on Instagram and kind of like knew each other and I reached out to her and we linked up and I had like one of my friends assist and shot the majority of it on film, which is kind of like where like the kind of work that I'm trying to get. And the whole time she really wanted like she kept sending me shit like she really wanted everything like on contact sheets and everything with like film borders and stuff like that. And I was like, oh well, it's like cliche as that is sometimes like it's fun to do that stuff. So I don't know, like a lot of that was like printed in the dark room and then random Polaroids and just things like that that pop up. Like the Polaroids are always like super fun to shoot on those kind of things, especially like with the new Polaroid cameras, you can just set it on manual mode and just kind of mimic your settings that you already have, set up flashes, whatever. And I don't know, it's just kind of like fun to shoot something else because I feel like I have like looked at the same stuff over and over again for the last like 13 years of like shooting skateboarding to where like shooting anything new, it's like it's the same thing with like I'll shoot like biking stuff sometimes and it's just fun because I have a friend who got put in an art director position at this brand Map. It's like an Australian biking apparel company and he started hitting me up to do things and I was like super down to do it because I've never done that stuff before. And it's so interesting to kind of try and like lend your eye to something else. And especially after seeing like what Atiba did with Slam and kind of how like that worked. And I would hear interviews with him, especially I think like you talked to him and he was saying how like he brought his skateboarding eye to basketball and then he learned things in basketball that he brought back to skateboarding. And I think that's like such a cool concept because I think like, I mean, obviously the more you're around your camera, the more you learn about how everything works. And so I don't know, just I feel like it's like important to kind of like shoot something different in hopes to maybe like make your other work kind of look a little bit different as well.
For me, I feel it's just a lot about like momentum. It's just like I feel like
Yeah.
if I'm like obviously you have the jobs you do for work and to make money and like sometimes those are creative, sometimes they're not. But then it's just like for me it's just like if I can have like my personal work going and the work stuff going, I feel like I'm just like sharp. Whereas if like I like right now
Hmm.
I'm kind of in between. I don't really have like a personal project going and I'm just kind of have that feeling like, damn, I haven't made anything like I'm proud of in a while, which is like the worst feeling. And you don't want to get like stagnant. And that's for me.
No,
I'm always looking for like that this to keep making stuff, you know?
100%. And that's kind of like how I feel too, is because like a lot of the stuff that I'll shoot for work is just like, I don't know, there's like a lot of things that I don't personally like care about and that I see the work roll out and I'm like, do not want my name attached to that. Just because like there's no I don't know, there's like no room to be creative. Like you're kind of filling in like a very specific brief that they want. And sometimes you get lucky because they hire you because they have an aesthetic that they want to fill, and other times they just like need a photographer. And
Mm.
so I mean, I was talking to someone about this the other day because they were just saying how it's really hard because it was like a younger cinematographer who's like kind of trying to make it in that world, and he currently has like a full-time job in skating, and he's just like, dude, like I love the skating stuff so much, but I feel like the skating stuff is almost like holding me back from being able to do the stuff that I really want to do.
Mhm.
And so it's just interesting, like the perspectives that people have on it, because I feel like you kind of always have to do like the things that personally fulfill you rather than the things that are just like paying your bills.
And I think it comes through in the work when you do work that like you're passionate about. I think the viewer and whoever is gonna look at it can kind of see it. Where and it's not like you're phoning it in. Like at least for me, like anytime I've ever like shown my personal work to like an editor, like some producer, it's like, yeah, sure they want to see you can like do some like you have some experience working for clients and stuff for sure. But then at the end of the day, I feel like they want to look at good imagery. So it's like
Yeah,
that's all I'm trying to.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's funny too because like when I went to photo school for 2 years and dropped out to move to California. And when I was in school, I was like so gung ho that all I wanted to do was make skate photos that I was like, this shit doesn't matter. Like learning studio photography doesn't fucking matter. Like I just want to shoot skate photos. And I remember I got so lazy with the assignments and it was so bad because at the time I was interning like the summer before I had interned at Camp Woodward. And I got to shoot like my job there was just shooting photos of like the visiting pro skate teams that were there. And I think like that summer I shot all the Enjoy team and I shot them just like I shot these like cool just one strobe headshots of each of them that like at the time were some of my favorite things that I had done. And I was in a studio photography class and for like our one strobe assignment, I was like, fuck, I'm just turning in these like photos of the Enjoy team that I shot like 6 months ago. And I remember I was showing them in the class and there was like one kid in the class that I didn't know skated or knew anything about skating. And he's looking at the photos while I'm presenting them and he's like raised his hand. He's like, is that Cairo Foster? I was like, fuck. I was like, yeah, that is. And he was like, just, I don't know. So just kind of like, I don't know, it just felt like lazy on my end, you know? And I kind of like realized that afterwards because I've even like apologized to my teachers from back then because I was just like, dude, I was like kind of shitty. And felt like I had like, not like an ego, but I just wasn't like open to learning new things.
Mhm.
And like I took this like experimental black and white class that I just did not take seriously back in college. And it was like all like printing photos in weird formats and making collages and stuff like that. And like I talked hella shit on all that. And now at like 30 years old, that's like all the shit that I want to do now.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
my whole desk is like just like cut up Polaroids right now that I try and turn into something. And I'm like, I emailed my professor and like sent her my last zine and I was like, dude, I was rough when I was like 18 years old. Like, I'm sorry. Here's like what I've been working on lately. Um, but even when I first moved to California, all I wanted to shoot was skating, 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 and that's kind of all that I wanted to do. And now I go on trips and I'll bring an assortment of film cameras with me and just like a digital camera to shoot the skate photos on. And the skate photos are always like a cool thing to shoot, but like I just went on this like crooked trip up through like the Pacific Northwest and into Canada a couple months ago and shot like 25 rolls of medium format film. And I think I walked away with like 10 good skate photos digital and then just like 85 selects of just like cool portraits. And there was like this one portrait that I got back of Brad Cromer that I was just like, dude, this is like all I needed to walk away with this whole trip. Like, I don't give a shit about anything else from this trip. It's like this one portrait that probably won't get used anywhere is like the one thing that I'm stoked to walk away with.
What do you think like clicked that like it opened your mind to being more open to like other types of photography? Because I was very much the same way. Like I was just like I looked up to like Atiba, like Oliver Barton, and like I had these like small list of guys, and that's all I was like. I only cared about like these type of magazines because at that point I didn't know. I didn't know about Richard Avedon or Marilyn Mark or any. I didn't have any knowledge of like the history of photography. But for you, what do you think kind of clicked to open your mind to more like creative stuff, I guess?
I think the thing that kind of clicked for me is, dude, when I first moved to California, I moved into this like I mean, it was kind of a big one bedroom apartment, but it was a one bedroom apartment with like for anywhere from like 5 to 8 people living there at a time. And it was just like your classic skate house, like pretty gross. Shower was disgusting. Toilet never got cleaned, whatever. And, um, it's just like such a normal thing to me. Like I was sleeping in the living room for 3.5 years and never really thought anything of it. And photographer at the time, he's now a firefighter, Ben Kilpatrick, who was someone that I looked up to, came over to the house and he was like looking around and stuff. He was like, dude, this place is like disgusting. Like, are you shooting photos of this? And I was like, not really. He like looked at my shower and was like, dude, how are you not shooting photos of any of this? This is like the craziest, grossest shit that I've seen in a really long time. And I still kick myself because there was like a 3 year period where like I didn't have any money. So I didn't like think of like, I remember having to like sell my Bronica SQA that I had since high school just to like pay a month of rent. And my rent
Mhm.
was like $300 at the time. Like it was no money. I just didn't have anything. So
Yep.
I didn't really like think of shooting photos of everything because I was so focused on like making $200 a week just so I could like afford to eat and live and like kind of try and like keep pursuing my dream. And I never really like sat back and looked in the situation I was in, being like, fuck, I could have made such a cool book or zine or something out of that like 5 year period of just living in like complete squalor before I kind of like made it shooting photos full time. And I think that's kind of when it clicked a little bit to where I was like, fuck, I probably should be shooting photos of like everything else going on around me. And like, why haven't I been? And then the first like big skate trip I got asked to go on was a trip for Welcome Skateboards in 2017 that was a 26-day trip through, and 26 days for a skate trip is like a painful, long amount of time. Like, you don't want to be doing that. And I just jumped at the fact because I was like, I'm not getting paid anything. I'm not even getting my food comp. Like the only thing I'm getting on this trip is like a free place to stay in all of these cities. And I was like, yeah, fuck it. I'm super down to go on that. Um, and I shot photos of everything. And all of those photos that I shot on that trip, like 99% of them didn't really go anywhere. And I just found the folder the other day, and there's so many cool, like the skate photos are so whatever to me, but all of the photos of just like us steadily looking more and more disheveled over the course of 26 days, I was just like, that's a pretty cool body of work. Like, I actually enjoyed that. By the time we got to the final city, like, half the squad was walking around the city barefoot. Everybody's just like sleeping in weird places at skate spots and just like shit like that, to where I'm like, that's the kind of thing I feel like in like 20 years that I'm going to look back at and be like, that's a cool body of work.
Yeah, I think that's like part of the journey of photography is like it's not just like learning the technical aspect, but it's like you're saying, like recognizing a moment in time and documenting that and not being so rigid, like only shooting the skate trick and everything
Yeah,
around it. But I think that's just part of the journey. You realize like it's like the same thing. I wish I had all these photos of my friends growing up, but I really all I had was like pretty much like the skate tricks, which is cool, but it's like
yeah,
it's all the surrounding stuff, like you say, is kind of the interesting part that is really going to mean something in like 20 years or whatever.
for sure. And I just think that like now knowing that, I just try and shoot as many like random photos as I possibly can, and just like who did you have on here last week? The
It was
Jake
this, no,
Ricker, the bridge guy. It
oh yeah,
was
Brit,
two
yeah,
weeks ago.
yeah, a couple weeks ago, yeah.
What's his name?
Jake Ricker.
So I kind of like I listened to that episode yesterday, and I really liked the fact that he's just like, dude, I just like shoot a lot of photos and like hopefully one or two stick.
Hmm.
And I think that mindset's like so important because it's like, dude, you just need to like shoot a lot, like, and go through it afterwards and like hopefully like you get one photo out of a roll that you're like
Hmm.
gold. Like this is like full touchdown moment right here. Um, but I don't know, like since just like growing up a little bit, I've kind of like tried to create more like just interesting portraits and interesting moments that I feel like go such a longer way, especially if I'm working on like a specific project. Like right now, I'm doing an editorial for Sam Muller's magazine 2001 with Stefan Janowski. And like Stefan's always been like one of my all-time favorites. And we have been like going around and he's super open to like any portrait ideas I have, any like kind of conceptual ideas I have for that kind of stuff. And he invited me over to his house and we just like shot a bunch of portraits, shot a bunch of photos of his art, and we've been trying to go out and shoot skate photos over the course of the last like week. And the skate photos are super cool. Like they're things that to me, like 16-year-old me would be so stoked that I just have like a hard drive of these like Stefan Janowski photos of him in his 40s. And the most important thing of that folder is like all the cool portraits that I've gotten of him and his art. And those are just like the things that I keep looking at to where I'm like, I'm stoked on this. Like this is actually giving me that like good feeling. Like the feeling that I used to get when I shot like a banger skate photo, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's so with a project like that they working on with Sam's Magazine 2001, go check it out. Did Sam approach you to work on this project or did you kind of pitch it to him or like how did it kind of all come together?
He was just kind of like looking for ideas because I've had a handful of photos in like every issue that he's done so far, and I've just like kind of contributed just like things that are sitting on a hard drive, and I really wanted to try and just pitch some kind of idea with someone that I'm stoked on that hasn't had like a ton of media coverage in skateboarding, so it's kind of just like fishing for something that's not like in every single issue of Thrasher, you know?
Hmm.
Um, and I worked on this Polaroid project with Stefan a couple of months ago, and beginning of the year, I did not know him at all. Like we had never met before, and I was shooting. Well, the first person I shot for the Polaroid project was Guy, and that was another one where I didn't know Guy at all. Like maybe met Guy once or twice, and Guy was super open to it, and he was really stoked on the images, and he was like, "Dude, you should get Stefan. Like you should shoot Stefan." And I got his number from someone and just like cold texted him. I was like, "Hey, man, we don't know each other, but I'm working on this project. It's getting used for this and that. Would you be interested?" And he's like, "Yep, come over to my house tomorrow and we can just shoot." And I was like, "Oh,
Oh,
like you're down." And we went over there and I had like one portrait idea that I wanted to shoot of him. And we got it. And he's like, "Wow, this is so cool. Like, what else can we do right now?" And I'm like, "Really? Like, you want to keep doing more?" And so we just shot all this stuff around his house, and him and his wife were just like super open. Like, I ended up kicking it over there for like 2.5 hours, just kind of like talking to him and going like into trying to find a project to pitch to Sam. I was like, "Oh, why don't we try and do something with Stefan?" He's like, "If you can get him, like, cool." And I hit him up and he was like, "Oh, I love 2001. Like, that would be so sick. Like, yeah, let's start shooting. I'll be around these dates." And yeah, we've been kind of trying to tackle it over the course of the last 2 weeks. And I think like this is the last week that we're gonna have to shoot anything for it, but we're like 99% kind of done. Like, if we can get anything else right now, it's just kind of like bonus points.
that's sick.
But it's just kind of fun like having a creative project to like I'm almost treating it like a personal project for me that just happens to like get printed in a magazine because I don't have like Sam didn't give me any like creative guidelines of being like this is what we need to have. He's just like do your thing. Let me borrow his Hasselblad X band to like shoot some weird shit on And so that's just been like it's been fun because I can shoot it all on film. Um, Not the skate photos because I don't have the flashes that can like handle shooting on film anymore just because of like flash durations and we're so used to like high speed syncing shit now to where you can shoot it at whatever shutter speed and on the film bodies
Yeah, you
can't.
You haven't talked to Xander Takatomo. He's still out there rolling. He's a maniac,
Can't
dude.
do it, man.
He is he's out there with
He's a
his.
maniac, dude.
He is. I
It's
love him.
crazy.
He's one of my best friends,
I'll
but he.
pick his brain about it. He's like one of the well, it's funny because like not to get off topic or anything, but he was actually like one of the first like people when I was getting into shooting photos. He was living in Philly at the time and I was in Pittsburgh and I found him on like Flickr or something.
Hmm.
And I didn't know anything about photography. Like I got the cheapest Nikon digital DSLR you can get that like my parents bought me and an 8 millimeter Rokinon fisheye. And I was just shooting photos and I would see all of his stuff was like cropped square and it just had these like really cool borders on it. And I was like, oh, I want mine to look like that. So I started cropping all my fisheye photos square and putting like a black border around them, like not knowing what like a 30 millimeter Hasselblad fisheye was. And I just like took a lot from like seeing what he was doing and was kind of like trying to totally bite that shit. And he was like one of those dudes that like he was the photo editor of this magazine Focus
Oh yeah,
back in the day, East Coast Mag, you definitely know.
yeah.
Um, and that was like the first place I was trying to get photos ran. And so I was like hitting up Xander all the time. And I think Xander might have responded to just like a couple emails just being like, nice, but like can't run this, try again.
Yeah.
And it was just funny because he like looking at his stuff now and the photos that I was looking at back then as like my early inspiration, seeing them, I'm just like, dude, I still can't believe that he was shooting this shit on medium format film. There's
Eh,
this one photo of a shot doing this gap back lip on this rail in Philly, and it's shot like fisheye from like kind of the bottom, and it's just like the most beautiful like East Coast blue, almost dusk sky. It was ran
mhm.
as a 4-star ad back in the day, and it was just this photo that I was like, this is like the coolest shit in the world. Like this is so fucking cool.
And he's still doing. He's still lugging around those. What are those big black packs that all escape photographers?
The
Action.
Lumidines?
Yeah, the action pack, whatever. He's still
Yeah.
trekking those around the world, but it's impressive. But with the Stefan thing, is that something you get to do very often, like work with the skater, like on a little longer term project? Because like I feel like back in the day, that was the thing. Like when there was more mags, it was like skate photographers would like work, like a Atiba would work with like Jamie Thomas for like months on this thing. But for your how skateboard photography is now, do you get to work with skaters like on long term projects much, or is it kind of this quick kind of hit stuff, I guess?
I wouldn't like say it's like long-term projects. Like I think there have definitely been like several of those to where it's just like I think you just get in like the groove with certain people and you don't even necessarily know like what you're shooting for. Like there was a long span of time where I was like only skating with Kyle Walker and I was stacking all these just like some of the craziest tricks that I've ever seen and then it just like turns into a Thrasher interview. You know, it's like you're not really going into it with those like oh, like let's go shoot a Thrasher interview because like you could pitch those all day to Mike Burnett, and it's like not really going to be like it's not going to be set in stone for a certain issue until like you start picking up momentum and getting photos. So
Hmm.
I feel like the easiest way to do it is just like find someone who you can like jive with more or less and just be out skating a lot and try and get like on some kind of trips. But the Kyle Walker stuff was nice too because that like right when COVID was happening and we like none of the companies really had like budgets to go on trips. Like they didn't want anybody, they couldn't publicly be buying flights for people and
Yep.
just like there couldn't be a Vans trip going on. And Kyle was really cool because Kyle would just book us, me, a filmer, and himself plane tickets to like go to Miami for 10 days. And
Yeah.
he would get us hotel rooms the whole time, like he would book me my own hotel room, like just on his own personal dime, saying that like fans might pay him back for it. And we would go and if it was just me, him, and our friend TJ Gaskell, who was filming for Vance at the time. And if we could get a photo a day or like a trick a day, like it was a total win. And then we would go out at night, kind of like do our own thing. And it was just fun because there was like a lot of freedom behind it. There wasn't someone like harping on us that we had to wake up early the next day. Like we could get out at 3 o'clock if we wanted to and go straight to a spot, get a trick, and be like, oh, we did something today. Like this was like a productive day somehow.
Yeah.
Um, but that stuff, it doesn't really like, at least for me, it doesn't really happen as much anymore just because like I think it would be different if I was on staff for a magazine to where like that kind of felt more like my job,
Hmm.
but it's kind of not. So I kind of like if I have someone that I'm stoked on skating with, like I'll go out skating with them, but it's kind of it's kind of a pain in the ass to do in LA where you're like trying to go to spots and like one up people and then you see I don't know, you go and battle a trick for a couple of weeks and then all of a sudden like you see so and so posted it to their Instagram and it's
Hmm.
just like that was a waste of my time.
Oh,
Um
wait. Oh, so like if you're shooting a photo of someone and they post the footage, you get kind of bummed on that? Like,
it's not even it's like someone else will go do the trick
oh, a different
because there's
skater.
so yeah, different skater because there's
Oh,
so many people in LA that are just like it's
yeah.
where everybody that's like the best at it lives. And
Hmm.
so you might like, dude, there have been so many instances where we'll find a spot and we'll be like, this is it. Like we got this trick on it, whatever. And then Thrasher will post a video like 2 weeks later of Joe Schmo skating around LA and like they skated your spot and like did a better trick. And you're just like,
Yeah.
and this is just on Instagram. Like this is just kind of where it's at. So, and on top of it, like I don't know. There's just like not a lot of money in it to where it's really hard to invest 6 months of your life into shooting like an interview with someone to then like 3 months after it comes out walk away with like maybe $1,200. You're just like it doesn't like really line up well to be like your number one thing that you're doing in your life. You know, it's like really hard to dedicate all your time into doing that.
I
And
get
it's
it.
still fun. Like when it lines up, like it's really cool. But just like where skateboarding's at right now, like one magazine that actually like has a decent payout is like kind of hard to work with on a lot of that stuff.
Hmm.
And it's super cool. Thrasher's the best, but there's only like 236 pages or something to fill every month. And like it's pretty competitive out there.
Oh yeah, definitely. And when you first started working like kind of the skate industry, how do you kind of get your foot in the door? Like how do you kind of get your first opportunities? Like what was like the first mag you got to work with?
Um, it was actually pretty sick because first when I was interning at Camp Woodward, I became really good friends with Sage Britton, whose dad is Grant Britton.
Okay.
And um, when I first came out, the first time I came to California, Sage would like invite me over to dinner at his house, and it would just be like me having dinner with Grant Britton. And
Damn.
like
That's gnarly.
that's like kind of like and Sage would just like tell his dad like, "Oh, this is my friend. He's a photographer," and I'm just like all nervous and shy and just like kind of like scared to say anything because like Grant Britton's the goat.
Yeah.
And um like through him he kind of just was like, oh, like email me photos, like anything that you're shooting, just like email me photos, and like if we can get something ran in the skateboard mag, like that'd be cool. And like to me that was like the craziest thing. And I think Matt Price was the photo editor at the time, so I would just be sending like emails to Price and emails to Grant, and like I would never CC them together for some reason. I would always send them separate and just see like what they each kind of had to
Smart
say
move.
about
Smart.
it.
That's a smart move.
Yeah. But I remember I was in college and it was maybe like 2013 or so, and Grant hit me up and he was like, "Hey, we do this feature called Togs in the Skateboard Mag, which is kind of like write up on a photographer, more or less. Like it's more so about the photographer than it is about the skater. Like, do you want to do one?" And I was sitting on, it was actually really cool because when I was in high school, Jake Johnson lived in Pittsburgh, and it was like kind of right after. when Minefield came out. And so to me, that was just like the coolest thing. And Jake was building this DIY in Pittsburgh. And there was just like one day that I shot this like really cool backside flip of Jake at this DIY at like over a bumped bar or something that he built. And I was sitting on this photo for the longest time because I didn't really know what to do with it. And that like ended up working perfectly for the feature. And I remember like Grant called me. I was working in my school's darkroom at the time, and Grant just like randomly cold called me one day while I was like changing chemicals. And he was like, "Hey, we're doing this feature on you in the next skateboard mag. Like, can we talk for a little bit?" And I was like, "Woo!" And I like immediately like bailed out of the dark room and just like nervously paced around telling him about my life, which kind of crazy. But that was like kind of the first thing that I had in a magazine. And then I moved out to California and I really wanted to try and work for the skateboard mag. And I think the day that I landed in California, I found out the skateboard mag got bought by the barracks or sold to
Yeah,
the barracks or however you want to put it.
that was the end.
And that was the end. Like it was just nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
And coincidentally, like 2 days after that, I broke my ankle skating. And so I was just like, had lived in California for like 5 days, was staying on my friend's couch, and just was like, is this really what I want to do with my life? Kind of whatever. And shortly after, I ended up moving into that like trap house, 1 bedroom place in Long Beach. And from there, I kind of just like started skating with more and more people. And like, it went from like never seeing pro skaters to like, you go to get your morning coffee and like Daniel Lutheran would be there and Matt Bennett would be there. And like, I don't know, you just started seeing all these people around. And it was just kind of like a trip to me because I had never really seen that before. And you're just like, oh, I kind of get how this works. And I just started skating with more and more people. And I think like I was sending photos to Trans World, was getting like, was shooting like a lot of checkouts for Trans World, was shooting like photos in the photo feature. I think I had like a couple like, it's like the 9 frames per second sequence thing they did in the beginning of the magazine. Um, but the first like proper thing that I pitched, I did a lunatic fringe with Ryan Townley for Thrasher in like 2016 maybe. And I just had never talked to Mike Burnett before and just sent him all these photos and I was like, hey, I shot all these, like, can we do something with them? And he's like, yeah, get one more photo and we'll put it in the next issue.
Damn.
And I wrote the whole thing too, and Mike, I think, liked that because he saw that like I was going to school for photojournalism, and the first like year I was in school, I wasn't allowed to take photography classes. I had to take all journalism classes. So I kind of like the only thing that I really got out of school was like learning how to write, and so that kind of helped me out a little bit in that part of it. And I bumped into Mike at like some party they were having at a bar in LA, and I like went up and introduced myself, and he was like really excited to meet me. He was like, if you have any ideas that you want to pitch, like please send me photos. I would love to see more, would love to see more. And it kind of snowballed from there. And I think after that Lunatic Fringe, I like haven't missed having a photo in Thrasher since. Like I think I've had one every issue since then. Like not all editorials, but like just random ads and random like
That's
I've had
sick.
at least one like if you can open you can open an issue with Thrasher and I've had like and not even as like a weird flex or anything, but that's something that I like hold
You gotta keep the
near and
streak.
dear. It's
Gotta
like
keep the streak going.
I dude, I can't miss at this point. Like there have been months where I'm like, fuck, dude, am I gonna miss? And there'll be like dude, there was one month I think like an advertiser ran like the same ad 2 issues in a row, and it like
It
saved
counts.
me to
That
where I
count.
was
That
like,
count. That counts.
I was like, that's a fucking photo. It says my name in there.
Uh,
But I've just gotten like really lucky because I feel like shooting that first thing for Thrasher, like people, all the skaters that I was friends with that were like pro skaters at the time, but they would be like drinking friends and not like if they were going out to skate, they're like, sorry, like Rogan's gonna come today, or I'm going out to shoot with like
yeah.
Oliver Barton, or
Yeah.
like Mike Burnett's coming up. And I'm just like, yeah, those are the big dogs. I don't blame you, dude.
Yeah.
And they saw that I got something in Thrasher and they were like, oh, you can shoot for Thrasher? Like, let's go shoot photos. And so it slowly just kind of like unwound to where I feel like most of the people in LA kind of like started to know me just because I was either going out with their friends or they would see my photos in the mag. So it kind of like
So like, yeah, if I shoot with you, there might be a chance it might get published. Kind of what it
100%. And
is.
that's like that's what they want, man. It's just like
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like all you have to do is like, and that's why it was really helpful going on like Thrasher trips where I was like shooting for the mag because they would send me on trips with like a bunch of people that I've like never crossed paths with.
Hmm.
And it's always funny because at the end of the trip, a lot of people were like, "Yo, let's shoot photos back home," and like they never end up hitting you up, and you might bump into them, and they're like,
Yeah.
"Oh shit, I forgot." But the one person, and it's so funny, the only one person that I went on a trip with, and they were like, "Oh, let's shoot photos when I get home." I did this like 2 week long monster tour through Europe a couple years ago, and Nyjah was like one of the only US skaters on like the first leg of the tour.
Yeah.
And Nyjah filmed so much crazy shit in those like the week that he was out there. And like as he was leaving, he was like, "Oh, let's shoot photos when we get home." And I was like, "Okay, bro." And I think like the second day I got home, I got like a random text from a number. It was like, "Hey, dude, this is Nyjah. I got your number. Are you back yet? I'm going out to skate today. Like, would love to have you." And there was like a couple months where like I was going out skating like almost every weekend with Nyjah, and I was just like, "This is so weird." I was like, "This is not like
Yes.
it's so weird."
It's from
There's just like,
shooting Nija and then photographing Reynolds putting socks on. You know, you never know what's gonna come in.
yeah, it's just like random. It's just random things, and there's just like so many like parts of skateboarding that you never really like think about until you're like on a session with these people, and then you're looking around, you're just like, all these people hang out together. I was like, this is so funny. I remember I went on like in 2017, like the first trip I ever did for Thrasher was like a globe trip to Portugal, and me and Mark Appleyard became like boys after like 2 days, which I thought was like pretty cool because Appleyard's like one of the best.
Yeah.
And as soon as we got back, Appleyard invited me to like his like I don't know how old he was turning. He was turning probably like 36 or 37 at the time, but he invited me to his birthday party. And I was like, I kind of, if Appleyard's invited me to his birthday party, I kind of have to go, you know? And I went to his birthday party and it was at like, dude, I forget whose house it was at, but it was like some, like a TJ Rogers or like a Matt Berger or someone like that, like their house in Orange County.
Hmm.
And I went down there and I was like looking around and I was like, it's so crazy that all these people hang out together.
Yeah, they're
Like I
skaters.
just never, they're skaters. It's just like,
Yeah.
it's just funny. You just like kind of don't realize it, but I
They're
don't know.
just
Everybody like
there's people.
everybody's cool.
Yeah.
There's people. Yeah, it's just weird because I feel like you don't really realize it like when you're so far out of it because you're just like these
Yeah.
people are like mythical video part people
Hmm.
to you, and as soon as they turn into like there's that switch where they turn into regular people, you're just like, oh, these are like normal ass dudes.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of what happened with me with starting this podcast. I was like, yeah, everyone's just doing the same shit. Uh,
Yeah.
you mentioned on your Instagram, your friend, late friend, Zane Timpson. He was like a big influence for you to kind of move to California and kind of pursue your photography career and stuff. Like, how important was he to kind of what you're doing now, you think?
Dude, it's actually funny because like when I first moved out to California, when I like broke my ankle, I was he like pretty much invited me. Sage Britton introduced me to Zane at Woodward, and Zane was just like, "Oh, dude, you have to like come out to California and see California." And I've never seen that before, you know. Like I've lived in Pennsylvania my whole life, never like really gotten to see that before. And like 2013, I came out for like my holiday break, and I came out to California for like a week and a half or 10 days or something. And I stayed with Zane and his family in Encinitas, and they were so cool. And I didn't know that California was like as nice as it is in the winter time. And so I got here in December and was like, whoa, it's like 75 degrees here. Like, this is nuts. And Zane just kind of like opened up a lot of doors for me and like introduced me to a lot of people. And above everything else was like him and his whole family were very, very welcoming to me. And they had like a guest, like it wasn't like an ADU. It was like some like kind of guest house on their property that was like attached to their house through their garage. But
Hmm.
they let me have it for the whole time I was there. And that next summer, I ended up like spending the whole summer out there. I spent like a month and a half out there. And me, Zane, and our other friend at the time, Micah, did this road trip from San Diego up to Seattle and back down over the span of a month. And through that, like, came to LA for the first time, like, went to the barracks for the first time. Jordan Maxim gave me a tab of acid at the barracks for the first time, just like random shit like that. And you kind of got to like see the inner workings of this shit. And I came home after that and I was like, oh, I have to move to California. Like, I have to figure out how to make this work. And I was talking to Zane, and Zane was just like, dude, like, just come move in with us. Like, just move in with me and my family. And I was like, ask your mom about it first. And he was like, I already did. Like, she says you're good to go. Like, you can have the
Amazing.
guest suite for as long as you need to. And um, I ended up, yeah, dropping out of college to move out there and moved in with them. Broke my ankle as soon as I moved out there, and his mom and dad just like took such good care of me the whole time I was just kind of like laid up on a bed in a boot. And Zane ended up like, I think 2 weeks into me living out there, Zane moved up to SF to like go to college. So I was just like, it was just like me, his mom, and his dad. And we were spending a lot of time together. And they like, his mom drove me up to Long Beach when I wanted to move up here and was just like, that's still like my address on my driver's license. Like they were just very, very, very good to me. And Zane kind of like did his thing. I did my thing. And we definitely like kept in contact over that time. And he passed away in 2021. And I think like, dude, maybe like 5 or 6 months before that, we kind of like, he was coming to LA to skate and he was like, oh, like I would love to see you, like let's try and go out and skate. And so we ended up like going out a bunch that week, and it was kind of cool because it was just like it felt like, because at that time like he had kind of like made it in his world of just like, he was skating for heroin at the time. He hadn't gone pro yet, but he was like skating for heroin and kind of like was finally starting to get like the recognition that I felt like he deserved. And I was shooting photos for Thrasher at the time. So it felt like we were kind of both like on a very similar path. And it was funny because the day I got my first Thrasher cover, he went pro for heroin. And so we were just like, whoa, this is like crazy coincidence. Like
Yeah.
that's a wild coincidence. And we kind of like, when I went to go pick up the issue with Thrasher, I stopped at Mike Burnett's house, which is like 10 minutes away from where Zane's parents lived. And Zane was in town then. I just like was in the neighborhood and I called him and I was like, are you at your house? Are you at your parents' house right now? And he was there and I like stopped in, saw him, got to grab one of his boards and just like talked to his dad for a while. And that was the last time I saw him,
Damn.
which is just kind of like kind of crazy because it was like we were both like celebrating that we both kind of like, those were both like our like milestones
Yeah.
at that, like, you know, like that's like but what we both really wanted when we were just kind of like on our road trip together in 2014. Like that's, those are like the goals that we kind of had that were like our long-term thing that you're just like, I don't know if this is ever going to happen, but like if I want to do anything in life, like this is it. And it was just kind of cool getting to share that with them. And it was like really heartbreaking when that should happen because it totally happened out of the blue.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
No. Yes. That sounds like incredible friendship. And who is the your cover on Thrasher? Who was the skater?
Evan Smith.
Okay.
Evan Smith skating on the Bay Bridge.
Oh yeah,
It
that
was
was a
like,
great. Yeah, that was a sick one.
yeah, that was like the first one. So that was like, I don't know, it just felt like very, it just felt fitting to have it like happen. It was just weird that it happened the same day as Zane. Like it was just like very much so like the universe felt like it was
Definitely.
like trying to tell you something.
Yeah, you guys were there at
But
the beginning, and you guys did it, man. That's a
yeah,
incredible story. Um, one project you kind of mentioned a little bit. You did a project recently with Polaroid. I think it was like the show is called La Habitat.
hmm,
What was that all about? Did like Polaroid approach you to make that work, or what was that project?
yeah. So what happened was, I saw that Polaroid came out with this like new I2 camera maybe like a year ago or something, and I love shooting Polaroid photos, but it's so hard because like on an SX70 or anything, like you'll get photos back and then like maybe 50% the focus actually hits and the exposure's right and just like all this shit. And there's like a lot of like it's just expensive, man. It's like
Oh
shooting
yeah.
film, but like even more expensive.
Hmm.
And I saw that they were giving them out to skateboarders for free. And so I like hit someone up that I saw had gotten one and I was like, yo, like who's the contact? Like I would love to just send them like a proposal email or something and like maybe get hit back.
Yeah.
And I sent this woman a DM on Instagram and who kind of is in charge of all that at Polaroid. And it never got like seen or whatever. And I was just like, ah, oh, that kind of sucks, whatever. And randomly enough, she just like started following me one day on Instagram, but I don't think that like it alerted her that I was in her message requests or something. I don't know. And I like unsent the message and resent it. And she immediately hit me back and was
That's
just
like,
like, oh, yeah, of course. Like, I'll send you a camera right now. Like, what's your address?
yeah.
And they sent me a camera in the mail, and I was kind of just like shooting things and just would like take photos of friends, whatever. And she was really stoked on it. She was like, I want to try and do a project with you. Let me try and figure something out. And she hit me up like 3 months later because we were kind of going back and forth trying to like line something up and nothing was really clicking or like they would end up going with other artists, which I was just like, it's the name of the game.
Hmm.
But she hit me up to do that project. And originally, I don't know who, I think it was supposed to just be me and Magda, who's like another photographer here in LA who's
Oh,
a legend.
Zinc. Yeah,
Yeah,
I've had her on before. She's incredible.
she's a boss. She is a total boss. She has photographed some really, really iconic people and done a really good job with it. But yeah, it was supposed to be the two of us, and then I don't really know what happened with her. I think they ended up using like a lot of her old Polaroids of when like she was just shooting iconic people back in the 90s, and she has some really fucking cool stuff. But um I kind of ended up like because the whole thing of the project was documenting skate scenes and I want to say like five different cities around the world, kind of like where it came from. And LA to a lot of people is kind of like the epicenter or center point of skateboarding.
Yeah.
And so they were like, LA is kind of like the most important one. We would love for you to do it. And to me, that was kind of just like a good excuse to shoot portraits of just like all of my childhood heroes. Um, and so I immediately said yes and like started kind of working on it. And it gave me a really good excuse to like cold call Guy Mariano and cold call Stefan and like just an excuse to like go over to Rashad's house and shoot a portrait of him and just kind of like I don't know, you would just bump into someone out skating and you would have a Polaroid camera in your car and be like, I don't know. I remember like bumping in. I shot Stefan stuff, and then I went to go meet some friends at a skate park, and Costin was there, and I just like pulled them out of the skate park and shot a quick portrait of him. And like, it's just like as easy as that as like bumping into someone and being like, "Hey, let me take your picture real quick, and let me try and do this." And like, it was just cool because you know, a lot of the times you're going out to shoot photos with people, and if you're shooting a portrait on film or even on like a digital camera, you're not like you don't get to like show them immediately. And so I think like the first person I shot for that project was P Rod. And it was
Hmm.
actually really sick too because I got to shoot the only skate photo I've ever shot of P Rod that day too. And I wasn't even like trying to go shoot a skate photo of Paul that day. I was just like literally there just to shoot a Polaroid photo of him. And I ended up walking away with like, I don't need to shoot another skate photo of P Rod after that one. I was like, I'm good. I did it. Um, but I shot this portrait of him, and he was like, the photos processed, and he was looking at it, and he was like, dude, these are like incredible. Like, I love these. Like, can I have one? And I was like, no, but I can
Scan it
definitely
for you.
like, yeah, I can scan it for you and email it to you, whatever. Um, and like, it kind of got me sparked to where I was like, man, these people are like getting stoked on this. Like, let's hit up more people. And that's when I hit up Guy, and I met up with Guy. I like got lined up with Guy from Joe, the team manager at Dickey. Shout out Joe. And he put me in touch with Guy, and like the whole ploy of the show was that it was premiering in Paris for Men's Fashion Week,
Wow.
which like that's like the easy sell to a skater where they're like, Fashion Week? Like, okay.
Paris? Yeah.
Um, yeah. And I remember like I met up with Guy, and Guy was like, "So this is really going up in Fashion Week, man. Like, when Fashion Week calls, you got to pick up the phone." And I was like, okay, sure. But I shot these portraits of Guy, and Guy was like so excited about him, and he kept going on and on about these are the best portraits anyone's ever shot of me. And I'm just like, disagree with that. But like I like these, they're cool. And he was just really excited about it. And I was like, from that point on, I was like, it kind of like gave me the confidence to just start randomly hitting people up. And a lot of people ignored me, like didn't hit me back. And I was like, that's fine. Like,
Yeah.
whatever. That's like the name of the game on a project.
Hmm.
Um, but a lot of people were like super receptive to it, especially when I was like, oh, I shot Guy and P-Rod for it. They're like, what? You shot those two? Like, I want to be a part of this.
Would you show them
And
like samples of the stuff you'd already shot just to kind of give them an idea? Or
dude, a lot of the times I wouldn't show people anything. Like they would be more stoked because they'd be like, damn, that's a new Polaroid camera. What's up with that?
yeah,
Especially like when I went over to Ashad's house, Ashad was super excited about it because Ashad's like, you should get a shot on here. Ashad would be a really good one on here. But
yeah,
he's
yeah,
like a
yeah.
total camera nerd. Like
I
he
know.
knows more about this
Yeah, I
shit than
heard
I do.
he built I heard he got like a condo now and just turned it into like a dark room basically. Like,
Dude, fully he's had a condo for a while and he was like renting it out for the longest time because he has a another house and he hit me up one day. He's like, yeah, I'm turning the condo into a dark room. I was like, really? And it's full like, dude, I went over there a couple weeks ago and it's like full photo studio dark room. And I'm just like, dude, good
dude,
for you. Like
dude.
he's a total nerd about that stuff, which is super cool. But yeah, it would just like I would show the main thing that I would do is just show the people the photos that I would shoot of them. And they would just be like really positively receptive towards it to where you're like, oh, I'm hitting up everyone to do this. Like I don't even care if they say no to me. But then it's also like if you bump into someone in public just being like, hey, can I take a Polaroid of you? Like I remember the last week I was doing it, I was like shooting something. It was like I was shooting an event for Thrasher in Venice Beach that was like a Red Bull thing, and it was like presented by Christian Soy. And I
Mhm.
was like, oh, easy one. Like I'm definitely gonna get a soy portrait in here. And like
He's down.
without even telling him what the project's for, I was just like, hey, let me take a photo of you
He
real
loves the
quick.
camera.
And
He
like
loves the camera, man. That's
loves a
it.
camera.
Yeah, dude.
And like, I don't know, it was cool because like the whole point of the project was like get like the people to you that have like inspired California or Los Angeles as like a whole in skateboarding. So it was cool because I got to like include photographers like Anthony Acosta or filmers like Ryan Lee that I feel like are very like influential to the history and current being of skateboarding in LA. And I don't know, it's just like a fun little thing to work on that like got to go out to Paris and like hang out for Fashion Week with everybody. Like,
That's
it's just
sick, dude.
like got to bring my girlfriend. Like
Yeah,
it's just a really good excuse to like I think like what I got paid for that covered just like
yeah.
all flights and Airbnbs and like some food. So I was like, free vacation, like
So, so
why not?
when's the Polaroid book coming, man? When you think you do something like print with it or?
Dude, yeah, I would like to. I have so many of these things like dude just on my desk right now. Like I have just like
Yeah,
so many of these things just like
the new
got this
one.
cool one of Stefan and his dog that it's gonna blur.
There, yeah, there
But
you go.
like
Yep,
just like there's like cool shit like that the new one's so good because it has autofocus and it has a manual mode and it's just cool because you can do
it's so sharp.
so much with it.
Yeah.
So sharp. It's like
Some
scary
people
how
like
sharp
it,
it
some
is.
people don't. Some people, it's because it is like
Oh, for
some
sure.
because it's like some people want to shoot Polaroid for like you were saying like 50% of the time it's gonna look weird. And but my friend Matt has one and it blew my mind how like tack sharp those things are now.
Yeah, Matt Day.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah, Matt Day's a Polaroid guy.
yeah,
We were talking about it too. Um,
big time Polaroid.
he's another goat, but yeah, it's just fun to kind of like mess around with where it's like I have like I don't know. I got like super into doing like emulsionless with the Polaroid and like transparency separations and just like there's so much weird shit that you can do
Hmm.
with the Polaroid that like kind of like it's the same thing as like shooting something else, man. It kind of just like unlocks a different part of your brain to like be creative with something. It's like getting a new toy to where you're just like, ooh, like I've never been able to do this before. Like, and
Yeah.
it's so cool to me too because like all the skate photographers back in the day when they were shooting medium format stuff, they would always throw a Polaroid back on their camera to like light test it.
That's what I did when
And
I
like
started. I had my Hasselblad, like that's what I did.
it's
Yeah.
fucking cool.
And it wasn't like as expensive back then. It was fucking,
Yeah.
yeah. It was
Well, it's
great.
funny too because I was like talking to Atiba about that a couple weeks ago, and I was just like, "How'd you do it? Did you have like the fucking? Did you just have like a Polaroid back?" And he's like, "Psh, "Come on, bro, I had the digital back." Like I was like, "Okay,
Oh,
sorry,
yeah, he was on another
dude,
level.
my bad."
He was on another
Yeah,
level.
100%,
But no, he shot
100%,
Polaroid back in the day too, because he came to Boston
for
back in the
sure.
day to shoot Jeremy and PJ, and he was shooting Polaroid. Uh,
Yeah, he loves to cat, bro.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You know,
But no, it's just like a fun, different medium, and like I'm really grateful that they are like down to kind of support me and like send me whatever I kind of ask for. Big shout
nice.
out Polaroid because they're like, I don't know, it's like the coolest. It's like I've gotten like random free things from skateboarding and like a couple camera things, but like, dude, if you can get like a free camera and free film as like a
Fuck yeah, dude.
sponsored thing, you're like, this
Yeah.
is the coolest shit. Like you feel like a skateboarder getting your like first box of boards or something, but it's just like,
Fucking
I don't know,
great.
it's just cool. It's a cool feeling.
Yeah. One photo I wanted to bring up. I don't know why I really love this photo. It was Jimmy Wilkins, who's an
Oh,
incredible
bro,
vert skater. I was just kind of
best vert
curious
skater.
because I mean, looking at your work, I don't know how much vert you shot over the course of your career, but like,
None.
is it a different challenge like shooting vert, and like how do you kind of approach shooting this photo? Anybody listening, you can watch the video version if you want to see the photo. But yeah, how do you approach this? I love this photo.
Dude, that's kind of like one of my favorite photos that I made this year because I don't know, I've wanted to shoot a Jimmy like I'm a big fan of Jimmy Wilkins. I respect vert skating so much because it's just like
Beast.
I think I've never dropped in on something that big and going to Tony's ramp in person, I'm just like, absolutely not, never
Mm.
doing that. I would like carve it and you
Yep.
would feel like you're the fucking man and you're like 3 feet from coping still, like you haven't even hit the vert yet.
Yeah, yeah.
But I was trying to shoot something with Jimmy for the longest time, and he had a shoe coming out on Lakai, and I've shot a lot of stuff for them in the past, and was kind of going back and forth with the team manager Steve Smith about shooting this, and we ended up like picking out a day, and Jimmy's kind of been like on and off hurt for the last year or so. Like I don't know if it's I don't know, I don't want to speak on his injury,
Yeah.
but he couldn't like he can't really skate for like a super long time and he's not going to be like trying the
Mm.
scariest trick in the world, which I
Yep.
was like that's perfect for me because I want something that you can consistently do almost every try so we can like try and shoot a photo.
Yeah.
And what I really wanted to do, there is this Mike Blayback photo of Colin McKay doing like, dude, it's like a varial heel fakie or some weird shit on like the DC ramp
Oh,
from
on
back in
the
the day.
like the bank in the
It
corner.
was like on the
Yeah, yeah,
bank,
yeah.
and he
Yep.
shot it from like up top. It's just like a
Mm-hmm.
legendary photo shot on a Hasselblad H1 or something in that realm, which is so fucking impressive to do because I shoot a lot on that camera and I can't imagine shooting skate stuff on that. But
Mm-hmm.
shot this beautiful photo and I was like, dude, I want to try and like recreate that with Jimmy. And so I brought my ladder down there because I always keep a ladder on me. There's like this one brand of ladders that is so good because it's like Gorilla Ladders or
Oh,
something. If
I've
I
seen
could
those.
ever
Yeah.
get sponsored by them, they're
Yeah.
the best because they
Yep.
like collapse pretty small.
Yep.
Like when I had my Honda Civic, I would run the ladder in the Honda Civic all the time. It was great. But I brought this ladder down there along with like every piece of like photo lighting equipment, sandbags, light stands, whatever that I had, because I was like, I have no idea
That's what I was
what
gonna
I'm
ask.
doing
Because
with this.
how much time? Because this is obviously you got like lights on the left, you got lights over here. Then there's obviously some lights on the deck. Like, how much time did it take to like set this up to actually start shooting? You think?
Um, Dude, I think the hardest part is going like back and forth down the ramp and up the ladder because like,
Hmm.
dude, my light camera left that's like lighting up the left side of the ramp
Yep.
on the ground is like I would have to pull that back because it would be like, oh, I'm getting like a random glare or something, or like something's going on. So it's like I'd have to walk all the way down, move it a little bit, go
Hmm.
back up, test it, and be like, still fucked up. I got to move it again. Um, but the best part about Tony's ramp is that the whole ceiling is it's like foil. So you can just use it as like a really good bounce,
Okay.
which is super helpful. Like you can kind of see it in that right corner how it's like pretty much all aluminum foil, that texture. I don't know what you would call that, like on the ceiling. I'm blanking on it. But it's really helpful because you can kind of like light everything, like the whole situation
Hmm.
and then just get very small bites on him to like light up his face and kind of get that like glow on his shoe. And so we kind of went back and forth and we were trying to find like the right trick to shoot. And we were doing like, dude, also, I've gotten clowned on this so much. I don't know what any grabs are. Like, I don't shoot vert. I don't know what any. I know this is like an indie nose bone or something,
Yeah,
but I'm
yeah,
probably going to get clowned for that too.
yeah.
Um, But we were doing like some frontside, like tweaked frontside air grab, and it was like looking cool, but it didn't. It focused more on like his board opposed to his shoe, and we were trying to get a photo that like showed the shoe for like the pro shoe, whatever.
Yeah.
And we shot some of those, and he was more so like middle of the frame, and I really wanted to get something where he was like off to the right, framed on that plain wall because of the way like I lit it gradient style. And so we played back and forth with it for a little bit, and I think this was like a 5 light setup trying
Okay.
to like make it look perfect. And he started trying them, and I had to adjust the ladder. And the whole time, too, I'm standing 10 feet up on a ladder on
That's
a
what's
ramp
gnarly
that's
as fuck.
already,
Like 15
dude,
feet. Like, oh my God.
terrified. And the other side, like directly behind me, is just, it's like all of Tony's rogue ramp pieces that
Oh
he
God.
has for like contests and events. So if I fall off that, like getting impaled in every orifice of my body.
Ugh.
And it's just like you're up there terrified. And so I had people on both sides of the ladder holding
Okay.
it. So
That's
I'd
good.
had no jiggle room. And that
Okay.
ramp is really secure. So it's not like
Yeah, yeah.
wiggling back and forth or whatever.
Hmm.
But as soon as he like tweaked one out, I was just like, oh, dude, this looks like insane. And so we kept kind of like playing with it and he would just go back and forth and he would do that. He would do a run and he would do 5 or 6 of those just back and forth
It's all
and
about
then
the
come up on
toe.
the
The
deck.
toe's the
All
best
about the
part.
toe.
It's so
Yeah.
sick.
The toes look like pretty incredible. There's like a BTS photo that I'll send you of me
Hmm.
shooting the photo on the ladder because I'm like fully like
Yeah.
I'm shooting this on a mirrorless, so I'm like not looking for the viewfinder, which Grant Brent will talk so much shit on, him and
Yeah.
Dave Swift. But I'm like holding it out, trying to get as close to a stack foot as possible
live view shooter.
for days. Um, yeah, I am the problem. But we kept going back and forth shooting it, and we got that frame. And I was like, I'm such a nitpicker because I loved how his trucks were right above that like metal thing on the
Oh,
wall, like the electric whatever. But I
yeah.
was pissed that his hand wasn't like framed on the wall. So I made him because I wanted it all just like his whole body on that cement wall.
Oh, this
And
hand?
I was just, yeah, that
Oh,
hand was like kind of pissing me off.
yeah.
And I made him keep going at that for like 20 minutes to the point where he was like, dude,
You're
I
killing
can't
me.
skate anymore. I'm
Yeah.
done. And I looked at this one that was like 15 tries ago and I was like, yeah, we got the photo like 20 minutes ago,
So
dude. We're good.
I'd imagine like getting to work on this photo is a lot different than like going street shooting. Like it seems like you had time to kind of craft it and like you said, keep
Yeah.
shooting it. Where sometimes
Yeah.
the guy might only try it once or twice or whatever, and it's just kind of done.
Yeah.
But this seems like a unique situation from a lot of your other work.
This is like ideal photo situation because a lot of the time, like it's really hard shooting like the crazy shit for Thrasher because you might have these dudes do something in one try
Hmm.
and they're just like, did you get it? and like you look and like your backlight didn't fire and their hands in their face and you're just like, but like with this it's cool because you're kind of like you're more so focused on getting a photo than you are getting a trick, you know?
Yep.
Like
Yep.
this wasn't something that he's like necessarily super stoked on trying to film. This is more so something where we're just like trying to like bang out an ad.
Yeah.
And we were both just like pretty excited with how this looked because like dude, the back foot is just like one of those things where you're just like you can't like
Nah, it doesn't even look real,
you
dude.
can't
It's
yeah
great.
it's like
It's
but
nuts.
it's also cool too because like he's you can't even tell just because of like how the fisheye works and like how it kind of like eliminates depth. But he's like 7 feet in the air from
Oh yeah.
coping.
Yep.
And so you're just like, when I send you the behind the scenes photo, you're gonna trip out because you're just like, dude, you can't even like,
Yeah, I'll post it when we release this. But yeah, it's incredible. It's got to feel good. Like you said, you're trying to
yeah.
show respect, and Blayback gave you the bullseye comment, so it's gotta feel good. Like, no,
Yeah, well, it's funny. He like DM'd me too and was just like, "Damn, this is really sick." And I was like, "Bro, I just gotta let you know, like, I was totally trying to bite your shit." And then we kind of started talking about the Colin McKay photo, and that's when I like found out what camera he shot it on, and like,
hmm
I don't know. Those are dudes too, where it's just like, I don't know. Mike Blayback's like arguably one of the best skate photographers of all time, and I met him a few years ago, and he was just like automatically really, really fucking cool to me. And I was
yeah,
just like, man, that's like, and like every time I see him, he always comes up to me, says, "What's up?" Like, asks me what I'm working on. And it's just like a really, really friendly guy to where you're just like, I don't know, kind of makes you stoked a little bit.
yeah. Me and him got to go to Germany last year. Leica flew us out there for this thing, and
Oh, no way.
we were both sitting there like, how the fuck did we get here from skateboarding? It was great, but yeah,
Well, dude,
Mike.
it's so cool to me too because he has such a really unique body of work outside of skateboarding where like you go on his website, like the first thing you see is like LeBron or
Well,
fucking
well,
like
well, now he's just shooting like Mark Zuckerberg and like all these like really like influential
yeah,
people and shit with all the stuff he's doing with the podcast or whatever. But yeah, it's incredible
yeah.
to see his journey. Because who are the skate photogs or photogs in general that you kind of looked up to early on in your journey?
I mean, dude, there's so many because I go in so many ways. Like, if we're talking skate photos, there's so many dudes that were just like so amazing when they were shooting their stuff on medium format film, and you're just like, how does this even like, dude, the
Yep,
stuff Ollie Barton was shooting back in the day? Like, I look at that now and I'm like,
the best.
how?
He's the
How
best.
did you do that? And it's so funny. I was trying to give him a compliment the other day, and he was just like, shook it off immediately. And I
Yeah,
was like,
dude,
dude,
he's the
just take
most
it. Like,
humble. Like I'm like, dude, you're one of the goats, man. Like he's
painfully humble.
yeah.
Um, but it's just he was a really big one. I mean, Xander, obviously. I think Spike Jones is kind of like an all-time great with like the stuff that he was shooting. Dude, I really liked all of Lance Mountain's skate photos back in the day too. Like I was shooting him for something a couple months ago and I was like picking his brain about that.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because like even talking to him about that now, he's like, dude, I had no fucking clue what I was doing. Um, and even like not to air him out, but like all those dudes, like I always think Spike is like the best because I just like the stuff he was shooting was so good. And I told that to Rick Howard maybe like a year ago,
hmm
and Rick was just like, dude, I got all of his negatives at the warehouse.
Whoa.
There's there's a lot of misses.
Hey, but I want to see that. That's like the stuff I
I
want
know.
to. Oh man, that'd be
Dude, the Krail Tap camp has like the coolest memorabilia. They're doing 30 years of chocolate next month
oh,
in LA.
I gotta come out. I saw the girl one last
You
year,
got
and
to
that
come.
that was mind
Did you
blowing.
go to the girl one?
Yeah, I was there on the last day. Me and
Dude,
Stefan Vanasco went, and it was fucking incredible.
dude, that is like a really cool. I like shot the opening release for that and dude, the stuff that was there is like we got to go in before like anybody else too. Like we were there like the day before kind of just watching them set it up and hang all the boards and just like watch the process of that.
Mhm.
But dude, it's so crazy seeing like dude, even how they like wrote down what tricks were on what tapes. And you're
Yeah.
just like, this is because that was like I was born in '94. So like I didn't really pick up a skateboard until like probably 2003. And so kind of seeing that stuff like before, because I think my first skate video was like almost round three. So there's so much shit that happened before that that you just like, you don't know anything about it. And seeing all of that stuff is just like really cool. But yeah, I mean, like when I got older, like I Sam Muller, like now super good friend, but he was like one of those dudes that I like looked up to so hard. I don't know if you ever used the website Skate Perception,
I
but
wasn't on, but yeah, I definitely knew of it back in the day when it was like Xander and my friend Jason Jenkins was on there, and they're all.
yeah,
I think it was more like a filmer website than still photography, like a little bit.
yeah, but there was like still such a cool community for photographers on there. And I remember like Sam had this photo at LA High on like the banks, and it was just like this really well lit, contrasty skate photo. And he did a breakdown of how he shot it and how he lit everything and what flashes and what power.
Mhm.
And it was like, you know how you'll see like the above shot from a studio being like this light here, this light here. He did that at LA High with like the bank drawn out, the skater, like and I was just like, I never thought about cross lighting something before or just like the three flash technique. And
Mhm.
that opened up a lot of like just a lot of like opportunity and perspective to me because I was just like, I didn't know about this. Like I would put my camera or I would put my camera here and my flash right here and just like shoot it like that and be like, why does my stuff not look contrasty? So like learning a lot from that and from him was just like another super helpful one. But
I really appreciate his work. It's almost like when I think about his work, it's almost about the absence of light, if that makes sense. It's like he's
mm-hmm,
very like because it's very easy to like overlight shit. A lot of times is pull out tons of gear where he's like it's like little pinches of light. Like and that's why
yeah,
he's very good at like knowing when to pull back and like when to add and like all that. And that's I really
100%. And
yeah.
dude, Sam's like stuff he's shooting outside of skateboarding is like I like that more than I like Sam's skate photos because like dude, he just has like this cool perspective and a lot of people like he's working on this personal project right now and he like showed me like what he's been doing and I was like taken aback because I know he's been going on all these trips for it and I
Yeah.
saw the what he's gotten so far and I was like, holy shit, dude, this is like
Yep.
some incredible stuff. But yeah, he's super talented. He's like another one of my like Hall of Famers.
Yeah, that's the same thing. He's obviously does all the skate shit, but then beyond that, he like pushing himself to do even more. So it's like
Yeah.
not getting like stagnant with what you're doing. Because I definitely
No.
yeah.
Just
Uh,
like, and I also really respect the fact that he's one of like the few people that shot a not trick cover for a cover of a not trick photo for a cover of Thrasher. Like he had like Rick Howard getting water poured on him from a
oh
balcony for
oh
like
shit. Yeah, I do
it's like a
remember that.
black and white photo. And that to me is like that's harder than shooting a skate trick
Dude,
photo.
my other favorite Thrasher cover, non-skate photo is Jeff Rowley with the he's juggling what do you call those little fucking grenades? It's like a
Yeah.
black one. I think Dan Sturt shot it. It's like 4x5. It's fucking awesome.
Dude,
Um,
Dan Sturt's another one though. Dan Sturt shot like so many iconic, do that rally. I want to say it's like rally back threeing into that ditch that was a Thrasher cover. That's just like it looks unfucking real because of
mhm.
like the wide angle lens and he tilted it to make the bank look like it's just a wall. And it's just shit like that that I don't know, anybody with like a unique perspective, I think, towards skateboarding because like where skateboarding photographers are at right now, like I feel like there's so much pressure to get your photos run that people definitely go like, and myself included, I've done this a million times, but you go the safety route because you're
Yep.
just like, I don't want to risk it all. And like you realize the one chance you get that there's going to be like a crazy shadow in front
Yeah.
or just like, dude, even like there was going back to like shooting Nija, there was like one day he woke up and was just like, there's this 24 flat 20 that I want to go grind, just like this crazy kink trail. And I had been there once before, like a couple days earlier. And I was looking at it and I was like, dude, it'd be so sick. Cause you know how like everybody shoots big rails just like from the bottom, little
Hmm.
skater,
Yep.
big rail, big stairs, whatever. And we were on this trip and there was dude, I think like five different photographers on the trip, and I was shooting it for Thrasher. So my shit was like the number one priority, and everybody else was kind of just like, if you get
Yeah.
something, you can use it somewhere else, whatever. And I had this like very intricate idea of shooting it like up high on top of the van from behind, like looking down the rail, framing him up against the grass, and like had this crazy. I was trying to like light shit like behind poles, like was going way too intricate with it.
Yeah.
And there was another photographer there, who was like the team manager, who was just like hitting record on the static angle at the bottom, but also had a camera. And he was just like firing off 20 frames per second, just like seeing what he could get. And Nigel grinded it. We immediately had to go to like some signing that we were late to. And we get there and I'm like looking at my photo and I'm like, damn, this is sick. And he's like, dude, check it out. I caught your flashes in one. And he shows me his photo, and his photo shits all over mine.
Oh
It's
man.
just like the safety at the bottom showing all the stairs, everything looked so much better than my photo. And I immediately that night went home and started editing it. And like the dude sent the photo that he shot in like our group chat, was just like, damn, this is crazy. And everybody's like, dude, this is the sickest photo. Like this needs to be. And I was just like, I
Feel
was
like
looking
it.
at mine and I was like, dude, my shit sucks compared to this. I
Hey,
was like,
but
this is what
like,
happens when you try and be different.
nah, but I mean, that's just part of the game. Like sometimes you gotta take chances, and that's unfortunately with photography. Sometimes you miss the moment. Like it happens, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's just what it is. It's
Yeah.
you
Just
get back,
like you're
get back.
never satisfied.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it was a bad one. I took an L on that one. That was like one of the worst photos I think I've ever shot.
Hey, man, it's a redemption. The next one.
Yeah, right.
But man, real pleasure talking to you. I guess what's next for you? Like what anything you're excited about coming up, anything you're working on or
Dude, I'm having a big Friendsgiving in a couple of weeks, and I'm gonna try and do like an 8 hour pulled pork. So
All right, that's good.
that's like the one thing that I'm like really looking forward to. Tie it back to the first thing we talked about. But
Yeah, smoked
yeah,
meat.
that's that, and just hopefully I'll go and skate with Stefan and Guy tomorrow and get something. But yeah, besides that, years I feel like the year's pretty much like over once it hits like the
Yeah,
November standpoint. So if I could
good.
shoot anything fun for the rest of the year, I'll be stoked. But had a
Yeah,
pretty good year so far, so I'm gonna just try and keep it rolling. But yeah, it
nice.
was a pleasure, man.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time, and I'll cut it there. So there you have it. That was the Alex Papke interview. I can't thank Alex enough for taking the time to come on the podcast. A real pleasure talking to him about his journey with photography and everything he's accomplished within skateboarding. So definitely go check out Alex's website at alexpopke.com, or you can follow him on Instagram at alex_popke. I'll put all his links in the description, but definitely go check out his work. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, I'm now selling Photo Banter hats. If you'd like to support the podcast and purchase one, I'll put the link in the description of this episode, as well as you can go to the Photo Banter Instagram page, and I have the link to the merch store now available. And also, this episode was sponsored by PickDrop. With the promo code Banter, you'll get 2 months free of the PickDrop image transfer tool. Like I said, it's been a platform I've been using for 5 years now to store all my photos and deliver to clients. So definitely go check it out. I love it. Just enter the promo code Banter at pickdrop.com and you'll get 2 months free. And as always, thanks so much for listening, and see you next week.